On a hot summer night in 1958, law enforcement officers burst into the bedroom of Mildred and Richard Loving and placed them under arrest. The Lovings hadn't gone on a crime spree, but they were public enemies in the eyes of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mr. and Mrs. Loving were thrown in jail for getting married, an act prohibited in Virginia, all because the Lovings didn't share the same skin color. The legal battle that followed culminated in the United States Supreme Court decision of Loving v. Virginia, which would forever cast the Lovings among the heroes of the civil rights movement. Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Loving, an African American and Native American woman, were married in Washington, D.C. after falling in love as teenagers in rural Virginia. However, their return to Virginia and cohabitation as husband and wife violated the Commonwealth's anti-miscegenation law known as the Racial Integrity Act. The act forbade interracial marriages, specifically marriages between white people and those who qualified as, quote, colored, unquote. After their arrest, both Mr. and Mrs. Loving pled guilty to violating the anti-miscegenation law. Rather than serving 1 year in prison, the Lovings accepted a suspended sentence and were banished from Virginia for 25 years. The Lovings later filed a motion to vacate the state court judgment, which the trial court denied. The Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals affirmed. The United States Supreme Court granted cert. The issue before the court was whether a state law prohibiting marriage exclusively on the basis of race was constitutional under the 14th Amendment. In an opinion by Chief Justice Warren, the court unanimously held that state interracial marriage bans violate both the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. In so doing, the court applied strict scrutiny. To pass strict scrutiny, a law's use of racial classifications must be necessary to further a compelling state interest and be narrowly tailored to further that interest. On the equal protection issue, Virginia contended that a more deferential, rational basis analysis should apply because the statute punished members of both races equally. The court rejected this argument, noting that the law forbade only interracial marriages involving white persons. The court determined that the statute drew a racial classification on its face, thus warranting strict scrutiny. Applying the test, the court ruled that Virginia's anti-miscegenation law, which was based entirely on racial distinctions, could have no legitimate purpose other than to perpetuate racial discrimination. The court concluded the law had been created to further white supremacy. Further, the court reasoned that the restriction on the freedom to marry violated the principal purpose of the Equal Protection Clause, which was to eliminate racial discrimination perpetrated by states. In addition to invalidating the statute on equal protection grounds, the court also held that the law violated the Lovings' due process rights. Emphasizing the long-standing importance of the individual right to marry, the court held an individual's choice to marry may not be invaded by the state. In the court's view, depriving individuals of such a fundamental right on the basis of race violated the Due Process Clause. Accordingly, the court reversed the judgment of the Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals and overturned the Lovings' convictions. Justice Stewart wrote separately to emphasize his continued belief that laws criminalizing behavior only when perpetrated by a member of a particular race are repugnant to the Constitution. Loving was a major step forward for the civil rights movement. The court's ruling invalidated interracial marriage bans in 16 states. The ruling also affirmed the importance of personal choice in the exercise of the freedom to marry. Nearly half a century later, the court invoked its decision in Loving as a binding precedent to extend marriage equality to same-sex couples in the landmark case Obergefell v. Hodges. Citing the fundamental nature of the marriage right, the court affirmed in Obergefell that which had been first decided by Loving, that love wins.